Hi, I'm Alistair Shipley. Driven by the beliefs that everyone has something special to offer, I created Not So Average, the podcast that proves that you don't need to be in the top 1% to be truly extraordinary. Each episode spotlights everyday people from your community, the very individuals you might pass on the street. These relatable stories reveal that whether you're a jack of all trades or a niche specialist, we all have unique experiences and valuable lessons to share. Imagine if we all took a moment to realize we're all not so average. Let's get after it. Welcome to another episode of Not So Average. Today, I'm thrilled to have Aislinn Grant with us. She is the founder of Grant, a successful branding agency she built from the ground up, having done branding for companies like Joy Drop and Bloom, with a background in innovation and entrepreneurship from Mount Royal University, and a journey that took her from managing stores at Lush to leading the design and marketing for a robotics company here in Calgary, separate to mine that I worked at. Aislinn embodies resilience, passion for design. But beyond her professional achievements, Aislinn is a dedicated mother and an inspiring entrepreneur who has overcome significant challenges to create a thriving business. Aislinn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. What an intro.
I like
love that.
It's fun. That's kind of the funnest part of putting this stuff together. The questions kind of come on their own.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. AI does play a part in structuring, but you're like, here's my thoughts.
That's all good.
But then when you write this stuff out, it's like, what do I know about this person?
That's also the first time that mother has been in an intro of mine.
Really?
Yeah. I just as you said that, I was like, oh, right.
I don't know how to play that off as a guy, but I would imagine that that's a pretty significant badge of honor to wear.
It is. It is for sure, but it's also it's interesting because it's a card that I'm careful about showing, which is kind of interesting because I don't want to make it about that.
Yeah.
But also it's such a huge part of me now.
Yeah.
And my life and my interests, and I mean that's a whole nother podcast, but yeah, I've been I remember being fully pregnant and not telling my network or community.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't tell leads and stuff about it.
Why?
Because I really didn't want it to be a part of any decision making, because I knew that it would be. It sucks that it is, but I've literally seen other people lose out on work because they're in a similar situation. So I was really confident that my team would be able to deliver the exact same level of work.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't want to make it about that at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say that it was because of friends like you and, Jen McDonald and Daniel Gibby and stuff that really made me think differently about how you acknowledge others. And I've consciously not made the point of saying female founder or stuff like that, because frankly, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But also, I didn't realize that it was such a takeaway or almost like a deduction, 10 points off of Gryffindor because of
That's exactly how I feel about girl boss.
Yeah.
Girl boss or boss babe. It's no.
Irrelevant.
No. Why is gender even a part of
We're playing
that
co-ed
journey?
sport. We're playing co-ed sports right now. We're all on the same field.
Well, exactly. And I'm a boss. I'm not a boss babe. I'm just a boss.
I love that. But yeah, interesting. Well, I'm going to continue to follow that suit. I'm just kind of in this era right now I just really have enjoyed seeing a lot of my friends grow into the parents that they are.
Yeah.
So I mentioned to you kind of off camera about my friend David that we had on here as a teacher.
Yeah.
Actually, I had two Davids, but the teacher specifically, and watching him grow into being a dad. I also knew him when he was a crazy sports athlete in a university, and I'm just I just love this next phase. And it's the same thing with watching our friends like Jen and Mike, and then Dahlia and Derek, and then watching you and your partner as well. And then I have all my high school friends. I think I had about 9 kids were born in the last year and a half. I love watching
It's crazy right now. There's a lot of babies.
Yeah, a lot of babies. Yeah. I'm going to actually just kind of jump right in here because you and I were talking about this when we were coming up the elevator, but Grant just celebrated 6 years of business.
Yeah.
And you just kind of wrote not a share all, but a pretty big share on your LinkedIn of where you came from.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, I did pull quite a few ideas from there.
Perfect.
Do you want to start with so you started Grant 6 years ago.
Yeah.
You're, everybody loves these stories of you were doing it in your sister's basement. You just came out of a big life milestone with the divorce.
Yeah.
So what motivated you to take this leap into the design industry despite everything else going on?
Well, actually, so 6 years ago was when Grant started, but 4 years before that, I started a different agency with a partner. And so basically this is my 10th year running an agency, which is pretty cool. But getting into design, that happened long before that, after many zigs and zags. But I guess, I don't know how far you want me to go back, but I worked...
This is your podcast.
This is my podcast. I worked in robotics, like you said, for a hot second, and that was super interesting for me. And I had no concept of really the graphic design could be a career. And then this specific company, it was a startup, I think there was 8 people, and they launched their first robot kind of prototype, and they had no packaging for it. And so I had to design the packaging, which actually the most complex part of designing the packaging was the foam inserts, which is so wild. Now looking back, I'm like, how did I actually do that? Because the robots, it was a personal robot, so this big.
For kids?
Yeah, well actually, mostly for middle-aged men.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not what I expected when I was, okay.
Eventually they went into education. And
that's what it was.
Yeah, but actually when I started, it was mostly really smart engineer men that liked robots as hobbies. But so that all the pieces came separately, and they couldn't be, certain ones couldn't go beside each other. So making this robotics packaging was so much more complex than I could have ever thought. And to date is the most complex packaging I've ever been a part of. And it was my first one ever. And I barely knew how to use my computer. And I feel like I designed it in something called Vista, which I don't even know where that exists. But so I had to design the outside packaging, which was complex on its own because I didn't really know how to design. And then I had to design the foam inserts, and all of the pieces of the robot were separate, and certain ones couldn't be stacked beside each other or stacked on top of each other. There was some batteries and
magnetism and
stuff. Yeah, stuff that you have to be quite careful of for safety. And we were dealing with Chinese manufacturers overseas, didn't speak Mandarin, and obviously quite a big time difference. And so I was designing these foam pieces, and literally I was in my mom and her husband at the time, their place, and I was just literally using a X-Acto knife and scissors and cutting out foam, and then cutting out perfect shapes for each piece, and then throwing it out, trying again, throwing out, trying again, throwing out, trying again, do the next layer, and then I had to make them all fit together. And then I was taking, I can't remember what it was called. It was it's like a ruler, but it's for micromillimeters. Do you remember what that's called? It's a little clamp. It's a very specific type of ruler, but I would use this thing and make all these very specific measurements, and then I would take a picture of that, put red marker all over it, and then send it to the Chinese manufacturers, and then they would send me a prototype, and then I would tweak it, and then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
So that's obviously taking time to ship it.
Yeah.
What was kind of the crunch period? Was it, notoriously you got the Christmas season for something, for a lot of products. Is that same for you guys? Or was there a seasonality to the product? What was the deadline that you're trying to hit?
We had so many deadlines because the robots started as 3D printed, and then they made the molds overseas to actually have plastic pieces. But I feel like that whole process of packaging was maybe 2 months, which is actually quite short.
Jeez, were you rush shipping?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Rush shipping, rush working, rush, all of it.
Wow.
Yeah. It was wild.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't recommend.
Okay. Wouldn't do it again. So what I love about this podcast, especially to highlight, is kind of people's roundabout ways of getting to the positions that they're in. So it sounds like you kind of just landed into this packaging and design portion. How did you talk your way into that?
Oh my God. The actual robotics job that I got, which is where I started to learn how to design, Jason Zeiler, who's now a really good friend of mine, him and his boss at the robotics firm came and talked to my class in university, entrepreneurship class. And I don't know what compelled me to go up to them, but I went up to them after the class. I was also so introverted and shy, and I don't know why. I just went up to them, and I thought it was so fascinating what they talked about in class, and I had zero interest in robots. But I don't know why. Sometimes I just like follow my gut, and it leads me in like the strangest places. But I went and talked to them, and then I ended up getting hired by them. I was just interested in what they were doing, and I just wanted to like learn from them. And then they hired me. I think I got paid actually I offered to work for free because I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I want to learn, like I'll just work for free. And they were like, no, we're not doing that. So they paid me, I can't even remember, like lowest of the low probably. And then, and then I just learned and then got to do the packaging. And then eventually I left there, and it was kind of all happened simultaneously, where I also had a bath bomb company that I was working on.
What was that called again?
AZ.
Yeah.
AZ cakes.
AZ cakes.
They were little like cake-shaped bath bombs. And that was kind of just, I love aromatherapy, so it kind of like stemmed from that. And I ran that, and at the same time that I was working in robotics, I was running this company, pitched it in the Launchpad pitch competition. And then I also got a little grant from MRU, so altogether I won 10 grand. And then I took that money, hired a branding agency to do my brand and packaging for AZ. And then I just remember going to the meetings with them and being like, this is what you got to do for life, like for work? And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is a job that someone has, is doing this. And then through that process, I something just clicked, and I was like, this is it. I've been going like this, and now I'm like, I want to learn how to design. I'm obsessed with this.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that was the point.
Yeah.
Or one of them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you and I obviously attended Mount Royal University. This isn't intentional, by the way. I just happen to have people that are outgoing from the opposing university here in Calgary. I do want to interview other people. They just make themselves more available. It's weird. Maybe that's an indicator that Mount Royal is just the best. Anywho, just kidding. But you and I went to Mount Royal University together. How did kind of your experience there with the Innovation and Entrepreneurship program kind of tailor the direction that you took later on? I know that you did go to U of C.
Yep.
Maybe you can even talk about like what was the key difference that you experienced? Like why was U of C such a different experience versus what you found at Mount Royal?
My God. It's so different. I mean, I went to U of C like having done really well in high school as far as grades.
Okay.
And was like, I am the cream of the cream. Like I am so academic. Went to school at U of C, and I had been very sheltered. I had like a very strict parent. So I went to school at U of C and lived in res. So it was like...
That's like the souffle sound that it just collapses.
Okay. That's exactly... That was my experience, was like I partied a ton, and I had never like really drank before. I was living in res, like co-ed res, and just had like the time of my life, but also had just sort of learned that I was celiac, but didn't really like know it. Like I wasn't diagnosed. So I was sleeping like 16 hours a day because I had no nutrition. And all I was eating was bread because I was in university.
Yeah. It's the most affordable thing.
That was it. And beer. And then I promptly failed out of university. I went for like a year and a half, and then I had a like total identity crisis, and I ended up getting into like a very weird niche classical guitar program where I took like classical guitar for a bit. and thought like because I had just learned how to play music that like I would thrive, and no, I sucked at it.
Early career path. From managing stores at Lush to working at a robotics startup. How did these diverse experiences kind of prepare you for, starting your own branding agency?
It was so key to work at Lush. Like I think I started at Lush when I was 19 and loved it. Like I still honestly have dreams of like working at Lush and just how much I loved it.
You traveled too with work, didn't you?
I didn't travel with work. I quit Lush and traveled.
Okay.
But I worked at Lush as like a Christmas temp, then I sales associate, whatever. And I think what I learned in that position was how to break rules and like still make it work for me, because there was all these different ways you're supposed to sell, and they all felt so skeezy and inauthentic to me. So I didn't follow any of the rules of how you were supposed to sell because it felt very gross to like someone to walk in the store and be like, oh, I love your shirt, and try and have this like weird, you
Okay.
know, gross conversation that you don't actually believe in. So anyway, I found my own way to sell that worked really well and for me. And then I ended up becoming a manager there. And I kind of learned, even though I was like one of the younger people that worked there, I learned how to manage people, lots of different demographics and age groups and whatever. And I loved it. And people responded fairly well. Like I was really young, so I don't really remember fully if I was good or not, but I just remember learning a lot about how to make it work for me. And then I quit Lush after like quite a few years, and then went overseas and basically worked at a very similar place after traveling for a while. And that place had like amazing products, and I fully like just dove in. I was Christmas temp there. Then after a month I was managing a store because I knew what I was doing. You know, they eventually were like, oh, what are you doing? Like, you should just manage the store. You've done this before. So I managed my own little store, and it was the most underperforming store that they had. And
Up until you get in there?
yeah, and it was the first time that I like really was like, I'm gonna do this my way. No one knows me. If I really screw this up, like, it's Australia.
Fly back home.
I'm leaving anyway, so I'll just try it, and then if I totally screw it up, I'm going anyway. Yeah, and then it was like the first time that I had like executed my ideas the way I thought them, and then it worked really well, and the store performed really well, and they actually asked me to be a partner and like bring it back to Canada. I know.
And why didn't you?
I didn't because of a lot of different reasons. I put together a huge business plan, and then their finances were like not really in a place where I think it would be successful. They never ended up doing it, so we both just kind of pulled the trigger. And then or the opposite of pull the trigger. And then I moved back, and then that's when I went back to school at MRU.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wild. So I'm definitely curious to pull on the thread about, you know, sales techniques and all that kind of stuff. Because a lot of people, well, now there's this amalgamation of marketing and sales having, well, there's definitely always been synergies between the two, but now they have, you frequently see it in organizations, chief revenue officers, and marketing kind of rolls up into it, and then sales rolls up into it. What do you think the key difference is, or maybe your explanation of it, what is the key differences between marketing versus sales?
Difference between marketing and sales. It's interesting because I just had to do this work internally for my company. I think, honestly, they're very different functions and personalities. Like marketing, I would say, it's all of the external kind of like promotional stuff of your company. Whereas like I do a lot of sales. I don't think I'm good at marketing. But I'm quite good at sales. Because sales to me is like diagnosing. And I love diagnosing things.
Yeah.
And I love picking things apart and like seeing the problems. And so sales to me never has felt like skeezy, because I'm genuinely just like looking at someone's business, where the gaps are, how we can fill them, and even how other people could fill the gaps, and then putting together a plan for them. I love that. But also that's probably because my degree's in business and like my background's in business, so I have that kind of rhetoric. Whereas marketing is, I am like not great at marketing myself or the firm. Luckily there's people on my team that are way better at that than me.
Fair. Yeah, the sales stuff is so interesting to me because I share the same opinion of like sales can be very sleazy and very scummy, but I don't want to paint that whole industry with that brush, because it definitely comes down to the individuals and their training and what's been taught to them. And this is once again coming from a guy that's done like 6 years of door-to-door sales, which is just notoriously just raked over the coals.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly though, and this is something that I took with a badge of honor, was the head honcho of the Canadian division for this one door-to-door company I was at basically told me, Alistair, the reason why you're having so many cancellations is because you're just too honest. And I basically just told all the customers like all the reasons why they shouldn't go with us when they asked. And I was just okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I was fine sleeping at the end of the day when I was like, okay, yeah, at least I told them everything. So they made an honest decision. But that same mentality morphed into just, how do I now work with companies that I can fully trust? And so when I am being honest, they still move forward with us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I totally agree. I think that's I mean, I can see how like your boss at the time wouldn't be stoked about that, but I think for me, like that's the only way I want to do sales is just to be honest. And we tell people not to work with us all the time.
Yeah. I'm going to get into that at some point. Is it still called the asshole clause?
No, I've changed it.
No.
No, I've actually flipped the script on that to change my own mentality around it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, we might as well ask about this. So you used to, at one point in time, when just kind of talking between us and friends, you had a particular clause so you could break up with relationships with customers that were just not going very well. So where's that at now?
Well, that does still exist. Like if, there's nothing necessarily formalized about it, in our contract there is for sure. But yeah, if someone, like we take a 50% deposit for all of our work and it's non-refundable. Although I have done that a few times where like just right away, like first meeting, I missed some signs, and then the first meeting we have, I realize it's not a good fit, and I refund them everything because I'm like, we haven't done any work yet, so just not a good fit. Yeah. But yeah, we have broken up with clients before. I think for me, like our work is creative, and I care so deeply about my team being in a good headspace, and I think that's why our work is good and has gotten even better, is because I protect them from like bad situations. There's no amount of money that's worth keep working with someone who's bad for us. So we have broken up with people, and usually it's kind of how, if there's any hiccups in the kind of dynamic and they don't react well, like I always give people the benefit of the doubt. So we would always like jump on a call, and like 90% of the time it's very workable and it's just like a miscommunication. But I've had a few times where people have really gone like a bad route, and I've had people, like only a couple, but they'll like yell at me because of something that they didn't like or didn't like resonate with, which is not a big deal. Like we deal with that all the time, is someone not liking something.
But it's the approach.
Yeah, and like I love that. I'm like, tell me more. Like that's just more ammo for us to do something new and cool. So I love getting feedback from people. That's our job. But I've had people be so aggressive, borderline abusive, and I always think like I can get over it. Like I don't take it personal. But if this was a team member on the call with you, would I allow it? And if the answer is no, then I just fire the client. I don't care how much money it costs. It's done.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think people need to take that approach more often. There's so many businesses that still follow that old mantra, the customer is always right. Yeah, client is always right. And I've seen it in the service industry that I'm in, where yes, you make a mistake, as humans you do, and we own it, but then they believe that they can just take it above and beyond what's acceptable. Like we've had scenarios where people are demanding of a completely free product for something that was out of our control, and they're adamant. Like we have definitely lost a lot of money on clients that just to keep the negative press away, because it didn't matter if we were right or wrong. It was going to come to light, like, and just put us in the spotlight, and we didn't want it. So we ate crow, and it frankly wasn't fair as like humans to humans. It was brutal. But it's a weird approach that people take. It's like just by being a nice human, you would actually get a lot more out of us. And honestly, now we don't really have to deal with that anymore. I don't know. Amazing. It's like we hit a certain threshold, and the more we charged, the less we had to deal with bullshit. Yeah. You know, and like in the beginning, I feel like I had to deal with it frequently, and now it's like almost never. Like our clients are incredible. They trust us. How much of your business is driven from referrals? Because I'm sure likeness attracts likeness too. 99%. Right? Yeah. Yeah. You did some branding for a few companies. Well, Rudy's. You did a little work with them for a short period of time. That's right. My first company did. First company. And I just remember every single time somebody says like, hey, I'm looking at marketing, like I did this with ex-partners and stuff. I was like, oh, you really got to check out Grant. So, and I can see how it happens that way, but kind of changing gears here. So this is going to go back quite a bit. Okay. You and I used to have kind of at the beginning of our careers, discussions around imposter syndrome. Oh, yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember this phase.
So it's something that I've now been able to better manage personally, but it still comes up. So I kind of wanted to ask some questions about it because obviously we spoke about imposter syndrome. How have you dealt with your imposter syndrome previously, especially with your entrepreneurial journey, and what advice would you give others in facing the same struggles?
I genuinely don't feel imposter syndrome anymore.
That's amazing.
I know.
Hell yeah.
I never knew it would happen, but I just genuinely don't. I think I definitely think before having a baby it started to go away, but then after having a baby I'm just like, ain't nobody got time for that. There's just like, I give no shits. This is just like, I am just who I am now.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're pretty cemented, or at least for
Yeah.
me, I've been very cemented in myself post-birth, which is such a relief.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things to worry about outside of imposter syndrome, but early on, I think my best advice is like so boring and cliche, but just fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Like nobody needs to know that you're nervous. Nobody needs to know that you aren't feeling like you're the expert, because you're not. Like I wasn't an expert. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I just did it anyway. And I had all those feelings, and you just have to navigate working whilst having those feelings. Like don't let it interrupt your flow. Don't let it impact the work you do. Still feel that way, because you can't really not feel that way if you do. Like there's no amount of therapy that will get you over it, for me at least. It was like you just have to get to a point where you've had enough wins to be like, I know what I'm doing. I could do this in my sleep.
Yeah, your
like,
competence level reached
yes.
a point where you couldn't deny it yourself.
Exactly. And like now it's totally changed the way I talk to clients too, because I push back in a way that I never thought I would. And like I stick up for good ideas in a way that I never thought I would. Whereas like previously I was, and I used to be a huge people pleaser. So
yeah.
I think that impacted our work a lot, because we would have some good ideas, but then if the client was like, I don't like it, and I kind of want to have like, I don't know, an airplane in my logo, I'd be like, okay, well, I guess we can try it. And now I would just say, no, that's a bad idea. And like having that free, I think now that's why people trust me so much, is because I just tell like it is. I know what I'm doing. I'll tell you what you need. And like, obviously it's co-created, like the client still has to collaborate with us, and I respect their journey and like history and their experience. But like when it comes to design, versus the client, I know what to do. So
I'm the expert.
Yeah.
Trust me.
And so like early on, I think you kind of have to go through those like yucky feelings of imposter syndrome, I think, but you have to give yourself enough reps to not feel that way. And I never got to that point because I was always changing like jobs or careers or like, you know, all the little weird tangents I had. I never got to the point where I had enough reps. So it was just like a long, drawn out version of imposter syndrome in every area, because I was starting everything from scratch.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. That whole like changing directions could really just impact your ability of becoming the subject matter expert or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then therefore your confidence is kind of, it's forced.
Yes.
I don't know why, but that whole time when you were talking, I was thinking about the Dr. Seuss quote. It's, what is it? For those who okay. Oh, now I forgot. My gosh.
I wish I could help you.
Oh my gosh. We're going to cut it out. But yeah, it's basically along the lines of like, those who care don't matter, and those who matter don't care.
Oh,
yeah. I forgot how the whole thing went.
Yeah, there's something juicy there.
Yeah, whatever. We lose them from time to time, but just got to let it happen. So, no, that's awesome though, in terms of the imposter syndrome, and the fact that because you kind of set roots in an area that you're passionate about, it kind of just faded away, and you didn't even, it sounds like you can't even mark a time when like you notice that it changed. It just did over time.
Yeah, not really. Like I definitely, because I was partner at an agency before, and I had lots of imposter syndrome. I think I was just at like a not really feeling that confident in myself and my contribution. And then when I started Grant, I was going through a bunch of naming exercises and like, what am I going to name this company? And then I just realized like, you know what? This is me. I'm standing behind me. I'm putting my money on me, and like, I'm not hiding behind anyone else. I'm just going to go for it. And so I named it Grant, one, because of that, two, because then I have no trademark issues. which is lovely. And I just...
Why is that? Just because it's
'Cause the
associated
name.
to your name?
Yeah, so like no one can come and sue you for having the same name as them if it's your own name. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it just makes things a little bit simpler.
Cool.
Yeah, so and I didn't feel like doing like a trademark search and hiring a trademark lawyer. I was like, you know what? It's and I didn't know that I would grow at that time. I thought it might just be me. So yeah, I took the easy route, but also it was very meaningful for me to be like, this is me, this is my company. And I think taking that stance so confidently for me was kind of the start of the release of imposter syndrome. It was like, you know, nobody's going to be impacted as much by the failure of this as I will. So I just have to make it work.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, congrats to you.
Thank you.
That is so cool. That is so cool. The changing directions has really resonated with me because that is something that, as I kind of pinpointed, my favorite part about this podcast is showing like the indirect routes to success, where most people felt their discomfort was in the misdirections, and I felt that too because I've pivoted so many times.
Yeah.
And even just starting this podcast, I had to do like a little double take of like, who the frick am I to start a podcast? But I've been talking my whole life.
Yeah.
I've been talking like a lot. I've done everything from like theater to door-to-door sales. I literally did for 6 years so I could improve my communication skills.
Wow.
I sit there and read about how to improve listening and just overall hearing, making other people feel heard.
You were built for this.
That's what I came to. And that was, I posted that on my Christmas like year-end wrap-up of like, here's where I'm at. I'm freaking proud to be here. So
yeah, I can totally see this for you. Like this is such a smart journey and such a good amalgamation of all your learnings.
Well, this is a smile that I get because I get to hang out with people like you. And that's been so powerful for me in other areas. Like my actual day-to-day job has gotten better because now I have these glimpses of excitement. Plus I'm getting these little like tidbits of just applicable knowledge that I can now use with my team. Yeah. Because I now manage a group of people. So just like, hey, now I have this facet because of, something Aislinn said. Oh. So, yeah. Okay. Growth through referrals.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Your business has grown almost exclusively through referrals. Yeah. What strategies have you implemented to cultivate and leverage referrals effectively?
I think this is an area that people make way too complicated. And really, like all we've done is just do a good job. Like
you don't need a referral code.
No, nothing.
Yeah.
We just we do a good job, and part of doing a good job is treating our clients well. And that's all we've needed. Like we rarely even ask for referrals. It's just clients, our retention of our clients is so high. I think honestly, if I'm being truly honest with myself, for a long time, it's because we were over delivering to clients and undercharging. So they were like, whoa, we got a deal. Like comparatively, they were like, wow, we got really good quality for what we paid. And they weren't expecting it. And then I learned really how I needed to kind of piece out our offerings and charge appropriately. And we have lots of data as far as how much time things take now so I can charge correctly. But I think that served us really well because we got referrals from these really good key people. So yeah, I think as far as getting referrals, we just really focus on doing a good job and making people happy. The other thing that I did that's not necessarily a strategy, it just comes out of genuine interest, is there was a few key people, I can think of 2 specifically, maybe more, that didn't hire us. And in my mind, I was like, this is a perfect fit. This would be a dream client. I think we would work really well together. And then they didn't hire us for whatever reason. And I stayed in touch because I just was obsessed with them. And then one client specifically, they didn't hire us. After they got branded by a different company, I sent them a note and was like, wow, it's beautiful. Because it was they did a great job. And then I was flying out to Vancouver, where they're from, for something else, and was like, can we meet up? And we did, and then we became friends, and they referred so many people to us even before they had worked with us. Then they had to rebrand years later as a much larger company. It was a way bigger contract, and they hired us to do it, and have since given us lots more referrals too. So I think I just make genuine connections with people that I actually really want to.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from a place of like vanity. It's like, I really believe in this entrepreneur. I believe in their products. Like I would love to work with them. And so I get really like honed in on like specific companies that I am obsessed with. And then I just stay connected with them because I'm interested. And it always works out. They always come back. So yeah.
That genuine interest, kind of seeing a general trend with you when you were talking about Lush and the disingenuine comments people made to kind of create connection and similarity with people when they walked into the store, like, oh my God, I love your shirt. Like throw up in my mouth. But yeah, it's because you genuinely were interested.
Yeah.
I do love that. I'm sure that interest and creating a great branding experience probably played into like your team building too, hey?
Yes.
How did you find people that were like as equally obsessed with the growth and improvement of your business as you were?
I feel like for better or for worse, I'm like very sensitive to people, so I can kind of like tell right away if someone's genuine or disingenuine. And so I think that helps me from a hiring perspective.
Okay.
But I think I have done an interesting, like when I hire people new, I always, do the original like interviews of like X amount of people. Then I pick my top 3 or 4. Then I give them all the same paid task, the same timeline. So I'll give them like, oh, can you make, whatever, I don't know, like a business card or something, like a 3 to 4 hour job. They all get paid the same. They have the same timeline. And then I literally compare apples to apples as far as work before I do like another interview, because the work is what's most important. So that's how I hired Tegan, I hired someone before that, but she ended up getting poached by a really big company. So
because she was that good.
She's really good. Yeah. And then I got Tegan, who was like just as good. And I just caught her at the perfect time between where she used to work. And so I hired her, and she was kind of my first like real employee. And her work was so much better than the other work that applied. And she was really shy. So like personality wise, I couldn't really tell yet whether or not like we would be a good fit, but she was really genuine and really hungry. And that's like a key factor for us, I think. And so I've kind of just replicated that every time I've hired.
Are those characteristics that you share? Because often, I don't know where I'm going with this train of thought, but I went through a hiring process recently, and I had to consciously kind of take a step back from my candidates, because it's so easy to gravitate towards likeness.
Yes.
And then you just have a templatized version of Alistair's. And I don't think I like that. I don't think I wanted an office full of Alistair's. But like, how did you find like, these are characteristics that I want to embody? Were they things that maybe you did share, and not in a bad way, but maybe share on that.
I think I'm really bad at that. I think I do hire people that are similar to me, to be honest.
But it's working.
Yeah, it is working. I think we would be served by having some diversity on our team for sure, in lots of aspects. But I think I hire people that have attributes that don't require micromanagement, which is me. Like I like people who love to teach themselves things. I love people that love autonomy. I love people that are go-getters. I love people that like are motivated, like self-motivated. And that is me. So I think that maybe I'm hiring people like me, or maybe I just like those characteristics. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that has served me really well, because my team is so engaged in our success. Like we have like no turnover.
Sounds like you give them a lot of autonomy too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. I guess you have to kind of go back and figure out what kind of business model you want to have, like how much hands-on work do you want to have daily with your people, your team, and if you acknowledge that you're a micromanager, then maybe you need people that need to take like a list from you every single day, versus people that are like, here's your list, and now I'm not going to talk to you for the rest of the day, and they can have faith in you.
Oh yeah, no, they run the agency.
Amazing. So we hear about this all the time, about work-life balance is what people say. I kind of like the terminology that's coming out more about like work-life harmony or blend.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you, kind of balancing the demands of a startup with your personal life, obviously having a little one can be pretty challenging. How do you maintain a healthy work-life blend, and what activities help you recharge?
Oh man,
Because creativity is heavily reliant on you having
is.
capacity to be creative.
It is. Yeah, big time. I think like I've never worked less in my life than I work right now. It's wild. And I just work like probably a normal amount, but before I worked crazy hours. I just worked all the time. That was my only hobby. Like people would be like, what do you do for fun? And I'd be like, no, don't know it. I just do this because I loved it.
Fun.
Like I love work. So that wasn't really like hard for me. But then I had a baby and I like being a parent so much more than I thought I would. I thought it would be like she's been in daycare since she was 3 months old, which was very hard for me. And I guess I always thought that like I would be, I don't know what the word is, but I thought that it would be easier for me to not be around her.
Okay.
Like I just love work so much. But basically by 2:30 every day, I'm like itching to go pick her up from daycare.
Well, I'm being conscious of that.
No, but it is interesting because like I have such strong boundaries now around like work. When I do work, weekends are my family time. Like that is like as you know, I just can't compute doing work stuff when I could be spending time with my baby, especially because she is in daycare. So like all day I just miss her.
Yeah.
But I do honestly, I love work. So it's not like I think about her all day. I actually like get very like, you know, into
that
my
flow
work.
state.
Yeah. So I have some like reprieve from that. But I think work wise, I basically like wake up in the morning at whatever time she gets up. So like between 4 and 6, and then spend some time with her, get her dressed. We have breakfast and then I bring her to daycare and I go to work. And then I work till like 2:33. Then I go pick her up. And then we come home, have some time together, I put her down for bed. And then honestly, I usually bring on my laptop again with my partner in bed because he also has a lot of work to do. So we work in bed from like 7:30 until 9 and then we both go to bed. That's it. Like honestly, work-life balance right now is probably not the most balanced. Like we don't do a ton outside of that. It's like we spend time with her and we work and we eat. And that's like all we have time for.
I mean, that could just be the season that you're in right now.
It is, honestly. I'm just coming to terms with that because there is a part of me that's like, you're really failing at life because you don't have any hobbies. It's amazing how like having a baby like really made me want to be perfect in every way. It's so unattainable.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's bizarre. It's
because
like,
you want to set that example.
It is like, I'm like, I don't have any more time to like fluff around. I have to be like, you know, like my eating has to be on par. I have to get working out again, which I'm doing, which is shocking. Like if any time in my life I've been more, I would think that like now would not be a time to be consistent, but I've been consistent. So good job to me. And then like my house, I'm like feeling terrible when it's not clean. Like it's weird. You would assume that you'd like give yourself a break, but no.
Now you're kind of analyzing yourself in a different light.
I know.
Wild.
Yeah.
You kind of covered a bit of what I was going to ask you about, like how welcoming a baby and running the agency and how it's becoming kind of a mother influence your approach to like managing your time. And I guess the other part was going to ask you like, how's it improved your leadership style?
Well, to be honest, I don't know if I'm the best person to speak to how it's improved it, but I have had feedback from my team recently that I'm more decisive than I've ever been and more clear.
You're like, I'm going to make a decision. It could be right or wrong, but this is the direction. And I like playing in this gray area is just not worth my time.
No, I can't play in the gray. I literally don't have time to play in the gray.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're doing this for better or for worse. We're doing it. Like my team contributes a lot to our decisions and I think that helps them really get on board with things. So I ask for a lot of feedback from them, but as far as directions, it's like, we're doing this and we're going to try it out for a quarter and that's it.
How have you enjoyed being that decisive?
Oh, I wish I did this before.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so much relief to just be clear and just go with the direction and that's it. There's no like sitting and wallowing in the anxiety of whether or not it's a right decision and just do it.
Yeah. Interesting. I've recently found, because I went through a pretty stressful period and then I realized that how I manage stress is actually a part of the problem. And it was crazy where once you realize how to manage the stress and anxiety, the mental fog disappeared and your ability to make more decisive decisions,
Yeah.
it started to happen. And then it just continued the cycle. You were less stressed and had less anxiety because you weren't just fumbling the bag on your choices.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, so I'm going to do this podcast. Okay, I'm committed now.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, you're going to make these purchases even though you're making no money. You're like, well, okay, that's how it's going to be. And then like things it feels different. I feel relieved. I feel like weight's off my shoulders.
Yeah. Like having clarity is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I think
it's not afforded to many people because I think they don't take the time.
Well, and also I have ADHD and get distracted very easily, and I don't have time now. So it's like our mantra this year is do less but better.
Yeah.
And so we're taking on less projects. Like there's less. We're doing everything outside of clients. We're doing less of. We used to have a goals list that we did every quarter, and it had all these things on them that we would all agree upon. This is what we're gonna focus on. And predictably, we didn't get them all done because there's too many goals. And this year, we went in and just literally scratched out probably at least a third of those things. We're like, we're no longer doing this. We're no longer doing this. We're no longer doing this. And then I reduced the whole list and was like, this is what we're focusing on. And everyone other than me, has one thing that they're focusing on for the quarter outside of client work. And we're actually seeing more headway.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Good for you.
Yeah, it feels better.
So overcoming challenges is something that often comes up with entrepreneurship. So what personal challenges have you faced in your entrepreneurial journey, and how have you overcome them to continue thriving as, a business owner, a leader?
Oh my gosh. There's so many challenges. I don't even know which one to tackle. What specifically? Any more specifics on that question?
You could say maybe in your later chapter of your career, or if there's anything that maybe even was just personal, but it sounds like your personal life was around building your agency.
Yeah.
So they kind of blended.
What personal life?
Yeah. Overcoming challenges. So maybe we could go the route of, it sounds like you got great staff. Sounds like because of it's no longer called the no assholes clause, but you got great clients.
Yeah.
So maybe at this point, you're at a point of bliss and you don't have these challenges to overcome.
Now I would say it's so funny because everyone told me this would happen, but when you get to the level that you were hoping to get to, there's just more problems at the other end, which is totally true.
Okay.
I think that now my problems are more existential and less practical.
Existential. Okay, so go into that.
I always struggle with to grow or not to grow. Am I trying to grow this for the sake of growing, or is there real purpose behind it? Because we have a few agencies in the States that we are really respect and look up to, and they're small. They're our size or smaller, and they're doing incredible, huge, big time work. And I'm like, well, we could do that too if we work really hard. So do we stay as a 6-person team, or do I grow this to a 20-person thing? And why would I make that move? What's important to me? Is it vanity to get to 20 people, or is there something real there? So I think I always struggle with that, and I try and catch myself in ego versus function.
That's such an interesting thing, the fight with ego.
Yeah.
Okay. So where have you kind of landed with it, or is this still TBD?
It's still kind of TBD, but I think it's in my nature to grow. And so I think I'm kind of just trusting that it's steeped in something for me, and it's not just, I want to have a bigger company and I want to have a bigger revenue line that I can say one day, we're a $10 million company. That would feel good to say, but that doesn't matter at all. Now, more than anything, I know that profit is what matters. Revenue is very minor. But I think for me, growth is an outlet to make sure that my team is paid really well. We're really balanced. We can do bigger and cooler things with our work. So I think there is something there. And for me too, I want to make more money. I want to make good money doing this. And we could probably achieve all those things by staying small too, if we were very careful. But I really like developing people. And I think that that's kind of part of my purpose is developing designers and creatives. I feel that's, I think there's lots of people that are better designers than me. And but I have like a sweet spot of kind of developing people. So I am just excited to like continue down that path, but that's always like a bit of a conundrum for me, is to grow or not to grow, and to make sure that I'm not doing it for like ego or vanity.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to kind of see how that all pans out.
Wild.
You've always kind of given the demeanor as well, for as long as I've known you, that it'll just work out the way that it's supposed to.
Oh, I love that.
I've never really sensed, like, sure, there might be this internal anxiety that when we first met was going on, but it was kind of just like, yeah, I'm going to get there when I get there.
Yeah.
I'm going to enjoy the journey. And I've just kind of always appreciated that about you.
Oh.
It's just, yeah, whether or not that's what you feel, that's how you
present.
You present.
I love that I present that way, because I'm actually like a deeply anxious person. You know what? I love that. I'll keep going down that path. I like that you see me that way.
We're always going to be our biggest critic too. It's crazy when you externalize what you're internalizing and you start to recognize, like, oh, this is actually just normal. What I perceive as anxiety is actually just everyday things that people feel.
Totally.
Now, I kind of want to put an asterisk on that, because like North Americans, with the way that the pace of like everything is, we run very anxious. I'm sure if you say that to, like, you go somewhere like tropical and they're just kind of laissez-faire, they're gonna be like, wow, you're over the top. But through having these conversations, the more I share about like my anxiety that I was getting through, significantly different now, way better. But you know, there's all these people that I'm like, you were rock solid, and you're telling me like you better stress out the fucking gills to the point of like mental breakdowns, and I'm just like, what? So,
well, and getting like medicated is great.
Yeah.
Like I take anxiety meds, and it is a big help.
Okay.
So I'm a big proponent of like just get medicated if you need to. It's like it's not worth feeling that anxious all the time.
Yeah. So do you mind if I just ask you some questions about that?
Yeah, ask away.
So I definitely had this discussion with my own family. So they at one point were like, hey, you should consider going down this path.
Yeah.
And I had partners that had gone down the medication route, and they viewed it as like, it's not a forever, it's just for right now.
Right.
Which was good. But then I've also had people that were like, this is just me forever. And I was completely on the opposite side of like, I need to figure out what's causing the anxiety so I can solve it, so I'm not on a crutch the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm happy where I'm at right now, but I'm just curious, like, what drove you to that route? What paths were you taking before then?
Yeah, I live like fully in
decision,
between
right?
Those two things. Like I am like I have one leg and the like, you know, you can manage this yourself. Like I feel much better after a hard workout, or if I'm like eating well, blah, 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 blah. But I think for me, my anxiety was like a specific breed of like worry about people that I love getting hurt.
Okay.
And so it would be like, I would like not be able to sleep because I would imagine like all these scenarios. And so at that point, like that's pretty crippling to like not be sleeping. So I just got medicated because that was like, that's not worth it. And then I slowly like would taper down. But I am just like an anxious person. I've always had anxiety. Like when I was little, I had like major test anxiety.
Okay.
And so I think I kind of do believe that for me personally, I probably don't have to be on like anxiety meds forever. But I also am just kind of like, what do I need right now in this moment? You know?
Yeah.
And
that's fair.
Yeah. And so I like, it's so funny. I like recently was like, oh, maybe I'll like taper down. And then I went to my doctor and she's like, how's your stress levels? And I was like, oh, extremely high. Like extremely high. And I can't really like pinpoint the source. And then she like listed out all the things I was doing. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Me?
Well, I guess when you say it like that. And so she was like, don't taper off your meds. Like stay on your meds. And I think, yeah, I don't know. I think that lots of people don't, like I didn't need to live that way, you know, and also I'm much more productive when I'm not overly anxious.
Yeah.
So in the name of efficiency, I'm glad I went on it.
Name of efficiency. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, and if that's the route that you're finding the most benefits, like more power to you. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Legacy and vision. What impact do you hope to leave on your clients, maybe even your team at Grant, and the broader design and maybe the entrepreneurial landscape?
Oh my God. Well, I think like I'm probably not going to say this very eloquently, but
You've done pretty good so far.
oh, thank you. What a ego boost. My clients, I think the legacy I want is for them to be successful. So all I want is time, money, and space so that I can do that for them and help them on that journey. So I think like that's pretty simple. I hope that at the end of our work together, like they were lucky. I literally was just flashing through my head of all the clients and like all the beautiful things feedback we've had in the last couple of weeks. But I hope that they have like a lot of respect for me and my team and the work we did, and that they feel so much pride in their brand and like what we've created. So clients feels like very easy for me because I just want them to succeed, and I don't work with people that I don't want to succeed. So that's pretty easy. Team wise, I guess I want them to see how good they are and like capitalize on that. So I just want them to grow as much as they need to grow, and hope that like I can facilitate that. And like we have a 4-day work week, we do like professional development, we have all these kind of like internal things that make it a good place to work, but we are hard workers. Like 4 days is not a lot to get.
Because you take Fridays off, don't you?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we take Fridays off, but we get like a full workload done in 4 days. So like we don't take, I hope the government doesn't see this, but we don't take lunches, like we don't take breaks really. Sometimes every once in a while we do, but we don't go out for team lunches, like we don't go out for beers in the middle of the day. We get to work and we crush it until 5 p.m. So it's like, we have to work really hard.
You're building the company you always wanted to work for. Look at
Well, yeah, and I don't want to, I want a 3-day weekend. Like, I don't know how, now that I have it, I'm like, how do people get all their stuff done? Like Fridays is like appointments and like running around. Saturdays like cleaning, Sundays relaxing, and then it's Monday.
I'm just thinking like, what? That sounds amazing. But yeah, currently the company that I'm helping build, that is not going to be.
It's not the reality?
Yeah, that's not the reality, no. No, it has to be a shared reality, but there's a lot of opinions, so.
Yeah, big time. And I know there's industries where 4-day doesn't make sense, but in our industry, it's like we need that headspace to actually be motivated and like want to do the work that we're doing. And if you come into work with the Sunday sads, you're not going to do good work.
Yeah. That makes me think about a different question that I didn't write down. What's your opinion? So I was listening to something about creativity comes from the ability to basically be bored. Like without boredom, you're not able to be creative.
Yeah.
And so this bell to bell, work days that everybody has, and this whole, every day is accounted for, every minute's clocked.
Yeah.
How do you cultivate creativity, and is boredom something that helps? Like, do you think these 3 days of, openness to think?
Yeah,
helps?
I guess it does. Like, and I think that the 4-day work week is definitely to our benefit as far as like the work that comes out. Because the 4 days we work, there's no boredom. Like there is no space to really like muck around. Sometimes we literally have to schedule certain hours for play before our projects to like try some stuff out and do some analog work. But if we do that, we literally probably put it in our calendars to be like, from 1 to 2 p.m. we're gonna play around with ink. So I think I'm not the best example of this, but I think the 3-day weekend helps to give people brain space, so they can come in fresh and excited. And then I think we also have to have I personally have to have little hacks to get myself inspired. And what's that?
Well,
I think for me, I need analog experiences. Like I need to be away from the computer to really get excited. So that could just be like looking through really beautiful books. Like I don't even know how much money I've spent on like beautiful books in our office. We don't even have that many. It's just that they're so expensive that I'm like.
You're talking like the photography, like coffee readers?
Yeah, they're all like embossed
texturally.
Or foil or textural. Like I love that. We used to have like a little box full of like kids' toys that is like kinetic sand and stuff like that we would like play with during our meetings. And then we have these challenges. Like we have challenges called Secret Design Challenge, which is like once a quarter, and there's a task that like results in some kind of design output that's not client related, and no one knows what it is except for the person who's planning it. So we could be making like letters with popcorn or making like typography with hot sauce.
Oh yeah, because you have your own font styles.
Yeah.
I just remember that.
Yeah.
That's some beautiful stuff. Oh,
Yeah.
That's so cool. Did that come out of one of those projects?
No, that one was very intentional. Like we wanted a typeface, so we like made a typeface, but we just had like a professional development sort of day, and we literally made like words out of honey and like peanut butter, which was surprisingly disgusting to make letters out of. But yeah, I think that kind of stuff is really key, but also that can be inserted in a really like intentional, scheduled way. Like it doesn't have to be something where you're like, well, I need to go to Tahiti for like 4 weeks to, get some brain space. It's like just throw some condiments on the table and some paper and tell people to like play around for an hour. And that honestly seems to work.
Well, we're getting close to the end here. I only have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
So I want to be conscious of your time, but advice for aspiring entrepreneurs. What advice would you give to listeners who are considering starting their own business, especially in the creative industries?
In the creative industries specifically, I would say make sure your portfolio is awesome. And I think a lot of people are looking for inspiration in the wrong places to make their work seem really great. So creative people specifically, I would look at like agencies or designers that really inspire you and use that as the bar rather than like Pinterest or something like that.
Okay.
So I think my eye for work wasn't really that great at the beginning. And now I look at good work all the time. And I think that helps me kind of shape my sense of what looks good. But I would say like advice in general is just to go out and ask the people that you look up to or that you would like to emulate. Go ask them for coffee. Go ask to work for them. Just like take the plunge. Don't be afraid. And the worst thing you're going to say is no. I think every time that I have stepped out of my comfort zone to go ask someone for a coffee or a drink or just to even just tell someone that I like really respect them and just to send them like a random DM message, it comes back like tenfold.
We need actually more just general appreciation from others. Like it's remarkable how rare and almost fleeting they are to receive compliments.
Yeah.
Obviously that sounds weird when we think about the social media era and it's so easy for vanity to get compliments, but like from a career background, it'd be like, hey, I really respect what you've done with XYZ thing. And like to hear that from an outside source beyond maybe even a client or a family friend is just, it's so, you can live on that energy for a little while.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, and I think if you're like a young entrepreneur and you haven't landed on the for sure thing for you, like pivoting is fine. Like pivoting and trying things, just give yourself grace to try a bunch of different things, and there's a pretty good chance that you're going to find something that makes you really excited every day if you're open about it. And I mean, I guess that's not a guarantee, but that's what happened to me. It was like I tried every weird door that opened, and eventually I kind of like built my own door. I was like, this is what I want. But I only knew that because I went through 100 doors to get there.
I like that. I definitely like that. Some people would say that sometimes you have to be forced to hunker down and just go through the growing pains because maybe that's what we're avoiding. But I like where I ended up from trying a whole ton of different things. And now my story actually makes sense.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's unique to me, which then makes my offering so much more valuable. Yeah. And it's because I tried all these things. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
I appreciate that. So what personal goals are you setting for yourself this year?
Personal goals. I want to spend as much time with my family as possible. I think that's like huge for me right now. I would love to have a hobby. That's part of my goals list. Like, what does a hobby look like outside of what I'm doing?
You should take up dancing like you always talked about.
I did always talk about that with you. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Maybe that's going to come back around this year. Yeah, and I want to grow my business. I think like I don't want to sleep on it. I think it's like now is the time. We're getting so much good interest that like a balanced person would say like, now's not the time, Aislinn. Like, just like take a chill pill.
But are those people the ones that you want to model your life off of?
Yeah, well, I mean, no, probably not. But
yeah, respectfully.
Respectfully, no. I just don't have it in me. I wish I could just like give myself a chill pill for a bit, but I honestly just have like kind of an instinct that now is the time to hit it hard. So I think I just have to follow that.
I love that. And that's what I love about the Mount Royal friends too, is just constant drive, constant drive. And I'll admit, like, at times I've lost it. I even had somebody once tell me that, like, you lack drive very recently.
Whoa.
A partner of mine.
Whoa.
And I had like an identity crisis because, like, look at who I surround myself with. And
I would never say that about you.
It took me some time to realize it actually had less to do with me at the end. But this is what I love about our group of friends, the just constant like betterment. And remarkably, there's none of this like it's lonely at the position that I'm at, because I think like we're so fulfilled in everywhere else that we're at, and we've actually done a great job of building our networks, our friends. You have your family, your team. That pride's coming from everywhere except external validation, which is amazing. Is there a particular quote or philosophy that guides you in your daily life and your endeavors right now?
I think it is do less but better. I think like that honestly has translated in so many different ways, like whether it's how I put out projects, how we actually execute design. Like every time I'm involved in a project, I'm like, what can I strip away? What doesn't need to be here? How do I say this in less words? How do I, make this better but with less effort? Like I think all of that is contributing to me like finding whatever balance looks like for me right now. Like hiring cleaners in my house, like do less but do it better, spend more quality time with my little baby girl and Paul. And I think that's my mantra this year. And honestly, probably for a while, it'll be do less but better.
I like that. One last question for you. It's crazy when you're having fun, it flies by. But final message, any thoughts or messages you like to share with the listeners about embracing your unique path to success?
I think it kind of goes back to that, like embracing future you rather than picking apart your deficiencies in the moment. Like I had this, like I saw a coach a long time ago, and she was kind of coaching me through like a divorce and like a big work transition because I was leaving the agency that I started. And I had this vision of myself in a silver suit on a stage. And have I ever told you the story?
No.
Okay, so I started an entrepreneurship group for women a long time ago. We used to refer to this as SSL, Silver Suit Lady. And Silver Suit Lady doesn't give a shit. She's wearing like a metallic suit on stage because she doesn't care how loud it looks or how egregious it seems. And I thought to myself, like, if I could wear a suit like that on stage one day, I'll know I've made it, because I'm just not caring about what anyone thinks. And it just like kind of sort of like emulated what success would look like for me. And I am not like clearly not into like that type of dress, but I think that symbol really played a part in me just going after it and not worrying about where I was at currently. It was like, that's future me, and I'm going to embody her right now because I need to make decisions like her now. So I would say that is like, what's that future version of you, and start making decisions with that mentality, not your current mentality.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Well, I'm glad that was the point that we ended off on. So that concludes our episode with Aislinn Grant. I will be sure to share her website, so when you guys go looking for any branding needs, you first reach out to her. Be sure to share this, like this, get this out there, help us get more of a following, because there's a lot of tidbits here that I think resonate with people beyond just our local community here in Calgary, Alberta. So let's get after it.
Woo!
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was so fun.